it's not like I'm making a lot more money than they are. I mean, there's not a great financial incentive to do it. One could argue that this is far more risky than that. I'm certain they would not have come back if I still farmed the way I used to. Costs are higher, but I keep 100 cents of the payroll, I keep 100 cents of the dollar I take in. USDA says that, this is just in food production, the farmer gets less than 15 cents of every dollar. I think we're building wealth, even though we're not taking in a lot of cash. You know, we own 2,000 acres of land that has gone from a 0.5% organic matter to 5% organic matter. Lack of cash causes you to get up out of bed in the morning and go see about your stuff. I mean, my goal is to leave my family as wealthy as I can in terms of working assets out here. But everything I do is for the next generation. That's the way it works. You know, the things that I do on the farm, contributions I make today, won't show up until next year or the next decade or the next generation. What I do here, and people like me do, is highly scalable, but not highly replicatable. I'm not trying to convince anybody to do anything. Yeah. I think this is a good idea, and I'm passionate about it, and I want to be part of helping anyone that wants to do this. This is 3,200 acres in this farm. It's about 4 miles along this road. This is Highway 27, and it gets narrower and wider, but it's all contiguous here. There's an additional 2,000 acres that we graze that is solar voltaic arrays. We graze it primarily with sheep, with cattle around the edges. What we're doing now is we're headed to the south end of the farm, which is the home place. It's the land that my great-grandfather came to in 1866. He farmed it, followed by his son, my granddad, followed by his son, my dad, followed by me. And now my two of my three daughters are helping manage the farm. And they've got 3 babies, which are the 5th generation on the farm. The farm, now Bluffton, Georgia is in the middle of the farm. But originally, the original farm is south of Bluffton. We've just moved further and further north. My office is in the old courthouse, the one-room courthouse, in the middle of Bluffton, and it's in the middle of the farm, right? It's the geographic center of the farm. This is not my land. This is a big 700-acre chunk that's very industrially farmed by a cousin of mine. Then we own 3 sides of it. We sort of surround it. So it may be a little bit interesting to you, but that land, the organic matter is 0.5%, 1/2%. And my land is 5%. So there's 10 times.
And more. You can see this fence line, or we'll drive past it.
Yeah, well, we'll pull in.
So this is 0.5%, and yours is how much?
5%.
5%, just from farming practice differences.
From farming corn, cotton, peanuts, very industrially, a lot of cultivation, a lot of chemical fertilizer, a lot of pesticides versus us that's just grazing.
But when you get into family land, how does your cousin feel about what you're doing? How do you feel about what your cousin's doing? And how does that, is there turmoil there?
I love my cousin. He's a good guy, but he just believes, as I used to believe, that is proper land management. And, I have evolved in my feelings on so that I think that's not. I used to do I farmed exactly that same way. There's no difference in the way this land was farmed and that land was farmed. But 20 years ago, I started moving away from it and have been moving away from it ever since. And one of the results, it's only one result, but one of the results is the carbon in the soil is 10x greater than it was. There are other results. I had 3 or 4 full-time employees. Now I've got 160 or 70 full-time employees. So
wow.
The benefit to the soil, the economic benefit to the community. I think that the food that I produce probably has a better health benefit to the people that eat it than what I used to do.
And because of your land management, and I think sometimes maybe we think things are common knowledge and maybe they're not, but with your organic matter being higher on your farm, like that's a cool number to be higher than, but you're able to do things on your farm that you can't on the other type of farmed land.
We had a 4-inch rain yesterday, or a 24-hour period, and almost no water was running off my farm, because if you've got over 5% organic matter, it'll absorb a 4-inch rain, or if it comes slowly. But my cousins, the water coming off it, there was a tremendous amount of water, and it was muddy. So, the topsoil was leaving. Those cattle moving back there. And those are laying chickens in those houses you see right there.
I do, yeah.
And that is my red meat slaughter plant, USDA inspected slaughter plant for red meat. I can kill cows, hogs, sheep, goats, and rabbits in there. And that is a separate establishment. It's also a USDA inspected slaughter plant, but it's for poultry. We kill chickens, turkeys, geese, guineas, and ducks over there.
So the left one is your red meat, and then the right one is your white meat, basically, and you've got that breezeway in the middle.
Yep.
Very cool. When you talk about how you love your cousin, he's a wonderful guy, beliefs are just different. Sometimes I think we as people, I know I personally can do it, where I feel very extreme about things, and it's hard not to really want to tell other people who are farming industrially or conventionally, like, come on, why aren't you believing what I'm doing? Why aren't you switching? It's so important. Don't you see that your farm is running water off and mine's not? How do you handle those emotions? Do you have those emotions, I guess?
No, I don't.
You don't?
I respect my cousin's right to farm his land the way he wants to farm it. Now, I don't agree with it, but I do believe that in land rights, and that he gets to do on his farm what he thinks is right, and I get to do on my farm what I think is right. I wish he would do a little different, but that's his business, and it's. I'm certainly not going to let him tell me what to do over here.
That's a good point.
But I'm not going to try to tell him what to do over there.
Now, I'm sure if he had questions about what you were doing, you would be open arms. This is what I'm doing, and this is how.
We do that I certainly do it for my cousin. We do it for the public. We have a 501c3 for education called CFAR, Center for Agricultural Resilience, and we teach what we do to others without a profit motive. But none of my friends and neighbors have embraced this sort of farming.
Why do you think that is?
Because I think they're very comfortable doing what they're doing financially and in every sense of the word. They just don't have, they're not incentivized. And let's not forget that they're farming the way that their daddy did, their granddaddy did, the way they learned at the University of Georgia. Cooperative Extension recommend.
Do you think it's almost like disrespect? And I mean that in a light sense. That can be a really harsh word, but do you think that they don't feel comfortable changing because it would feel to them like they were disrespecting what they've been taught, what their dad taught them?
I think there's some of that, but there's also the fact that farming like this it's not like I'm making a lot more money than they are. I mean, there's not a great financial incentive to do it. One could argue that this is far more risky than that. There's a lot of reasons for my friends and neighbors and relatives to not change the way they farm. Would I prefer they do? Yes. But, I could still go broke and them not.
What you're doing is way riskier. You can't exactly insure your product like conventional farmers can with crop insurance, even like some subsidy-backed things. So how do you justify what you're doing then if it is riskier, if you're not really making that much money? Where are your rewards at?
Well, it's working for me. And 2 of my 3 daughters chose to come back to do this because they liked what we're doing. And they I'm certain they would not have come back if I still farmed the way I used to.
Why? Why do you think they wouldn't have come back if you were still farming conventionally?
I don't think they would have found it attractive. It's financially they would have been okay, but it would have been, very focused on maximum yields in pesticides and chemical fertilizers and a lot of equipment turning soil and just a lot of things that I think they would have not enjoyed. I used to do it and I enjoyed it. When I was a young man, I enjoyed farming industrially. But came to be increasingly aware of the unintended consequences and didn't like them, so I started moving away from it.
Do you see that kind of shifting where people of our generation, I think I'm about the same age as your daughters, that our generation is kind of shifting away from that take cycle or maybe that high input cycle? And why do you think that?
I think that there's a lot more information out there every year of the unintended negative consequences of industrial food production. I think it shapes the way that young consumers view that production model. But I also think that that's being disrupted. I think there's a lot of greenwashing going on. A lot of industrial production has figured out that it's cheaper, easier to change the way we talk about what we do than to change what we do. And I see a lot of that.
Yeah. How do you see a lot of that?
How do I see a lot of it?
Yeah, like where do you see that greenwashing mostly?
Well, my main product is grass-fed beef. And we had a very good run selling grass-fed beef when we first started. We were very fortunate. We were early in.
Because that was what year?
Early 2000s.
Right. Okay. And nobody really talked about grass-fed beef at that point.
It was a new subject. Just so you know where we are here. So that's our greenhouse. Our organic vegetable garden used to be out there, but we outgrew it, so we moved it. I didn't move the greenhouse. That semi you see with the ductwork on top is our dehydrator. We put in all kind of stuff, hog ears, chicken heads, things for pet.
Yeah.
And there's a huge LP gas heater that circulates air through it, and it dehydrates those things. And things we used to throw away are now marketable products.
Yeah, yeah.
And this building is our fulfillment center for the online store. The UPS truck sitting right there. They bring us one every 5 days a week. They bring a truck, and we'll back it up there and fill that day's order.
Wow.
That's a solar voltaic array that helps power the plants. We were going to put some more in.
So you are capitalizing on solar.
Yes. Up here on the left is where we. So this is very unusual, but we kill 25 cows a day. We kill 50 hogs when we're killing hogs. We kill 1,000 chickens when we're killing chickens, and we generate about 6 to 9 tons of waste material.
Yeah.
Eviscerate, feathers, gut fill, the non-marketable bone. That goes on that little dump truck, and we compost it. We've got a huge composting operation, 6 to 9 tons a day, 5 days a week. We make compost and we put it on the land, and it's a game changer for the land.
So does any product, does any animal byproduct leave the farm that's not for an intended use?
It does not.
Wow.
We call it a zero waste plant.
Yeah.
And from an animal perspective, that's true. There's plastic stuff that that we can't personally recycle. We deliver to a recycler. You see how green these pastures are?
I do. And this is the middle of February.
This is the middle of February. This is
wow.
The reason for that is, I'm in the coastal plains of Georgia. Gulf of Mexico is about 80 miles that way. We do this ecosystem does a really good job producing warm season perennial plants. We do it does a very good job in the summer. And we don't do a good job with cool season perennial plants. And I always, growing up, I thought that was a huge negative, because not too far north here they could grow fescue in the wintertime. We couldn't do it, and I thought that was unfortunate. But I came to realize that we can grow cool season annuals very well here. So we overseed every acre of this 3,200 acres every October with a mixture of cool season crops. You can see the little rows there.
Yeah.
We run a grain drill over every acre, and it's a mixture of a cereal like oats, wheat, rye, brassica, like dicot radish, a clover like crimson clover, and ryegrass. It's very expensive. It costs us a couple of $100,000 to seed it every year, but it allows us to graze our cattle 10 months a year.
Without feeding hay?
We feed hay 2 months.
2 months a year, yeah. Wow. That maybe talks a little bit about how this is kind of riskier than the conventional farming ideas, because you are managing so many extra things. You've got all your byproducts, your dehydrated pet foods, you are making sure that your fields are seeded correctly. You've got animals out in every pasture, like pigs here, and laying hens back there, and sheep over there. Yeah, sheep way back there, cattle over there. So how do you manage all of that diversity? We talk about how great diversity is, but then it can feel very overwhelming when you're in the middle of it. How do you manage that?
I couldn't manage all this. We have a real structure. We didn't have. For years, I was the only decision maker here, and it was me telling a small group of laborers what we're going to do today. And then we've evolved. Today we've got I call it the board of directors. There's 7 of us, me, 2 daughters, 2 in-laws, and 2 non-family members that supervise 25 managers that supervise about 40 or 50 employees. And it certainly it's not perfect, but it works very, very well.
What made you change that from you being kind of the teller to
the business outgrew me? I mean, I would show up at 6 in the morning at my office, and 2 guys would be waiting to talk to me, and I'd talk to them all day long. Somebody else all day long, and so it just wasn't working. This is the landline, my southern border. My neighbor is a super successful plaintiff's attorney, and it's purely a hunting property. It's beautiful. I really love the way it looks, and I can't afford to do that, but ecologically, I think it's great.
Why do you think so? Because I ask that because some people can be very against the hunting properties. Oh, they're not doing anything. They're not productive.
Well,
why do you like it?
It depends on how you want to look at it. From what they're producing in terms of feeding people, no, it's not. But from a ecological perspective, all the cycles of nature are operating optimally on this hunting property. That's the true measure of whether or not it's working. The cycles of nature are the water cycle, the carbon cycle, the mineral cycle, the microbial cycle, the energy cycle, on and on.
Right.
Cycles we probably don't even recognize.
Yeah.
And in industrial farming, we break those cycles, and very intentionally break those cycles of nature. Setting up a monoculture of anything, cows or corn or asparagus, breaks the cycles of nature. And what we do is work to optimize the cycles of nature. And that's happening in this hunting property.
Yeah.
And it's happening here on this grazing property, but it's not happening on the next property up. There's 3 properties here in a row that were farmed pretty identically 30 years ago, and we went 3 separate directions.
Yeah.
3 separate owners. Mine became a grazing property. This became a recreational property. and that remained a row crop production property.
So how does it feel as a father, as a grandfather, and as a businessman to have your family so close for the most part?
It's very rewarding.
Why?
Yeah. I mean, to have, I eat 2 or 3 meals a day with my family, so at our little restaurant. So it's, I feel blessed with that, having that opportunity.
And you weren't able to do that with the conventional farm because they were away, or because your work there didn't allow you to pause and eat with your family?
They would not have chosen to come back here had I stayed.
Yeah.
Very industrial.
It makes me think of something that you said in your book. And as a cattle woman myself, growing up we had row crop, but my business enterprise was the cattle. So I kind of ran the cattle on my family farm. And you said that you loaded your cattle up one day and it almost broke your heart. And I'm going to paraphrase, but it almost broke your heart because it felt like you were raising your daughter to be a princess and sending her to a whorehouse.
Yeah.
And that hits me hard as a woman, as a mother, as a farmer, as a cattle woman. Where did that come from? Where did that line of thinking come from, and how has it changed you?
I forever. My dad, we raised calves, 700 mama cows, maybe 800. Raised calves. Sometimes we finished them here on the farm. More often, we'd load them up and send them to the Midwest or West for finishing. And I did it from the time I was a little bitty kid, load cattle, and it was fine. And suddenly that day it just didn't feel. I'm not sure exactly why. Probably because I was such an extremist. If the rules said you can put a quart to the acre, I probably put 3 pints.
Of a spray or something.
If the rules said you can give them 2 cc's per 100 pounds, I probably gave them 3 cc's per 100 pounds. So, I think I put myself in a position where I could see the unintended consequences of using those technological tools and maybe not want to use them anymore.
So you had like an awareness of your rule breaking. Do you think that other farmers have that kind of awareness?
Well, I think probably most of them follow the rules better than I did.
Okay.
So I think, that's not to my credit, but it's just being honest about how we got here. And I respect the fact they play by the rules, but that doesn't necessarily mean the unintended consequences are not there. It just means you might not be as aware of the unintended consequences. These are bulls.
Okay, I was going to ask where we were now.
Yeah, so these are bulls that we have cut out. We save our own heifers, we save our own bulls, a closed herd.
Okay.
Which is kind of unusual. And, these are the bulls that we cut out. They're born here, raised here, and our breeding season for the winter calving herd starts February 15th. So, and we've cut these bulls out, we've semen checked them, they're all sound. Well, the ones, these are sound. The ones that weren't sound, we're going to slaughter them. And we'll turn them out with the cows February 15th. And it'll take them about 90 days to breed everybody that's going to breed. And we have another herd that's 6 months. There's 1,000 mama cows in that winter calving herd.
Wow.
A little over 1,000. And there's another herd that's of summer calving that's the opposite. 6 months offset. So that gives us cattle to slaughter 12 months a year. Those are finishing calves that will be slaughtered. Those bulls were cut out of there. We go through them once. There's a little over 1,000 calves, finishing calves out there, and some of them are a year old, some of them are 2 years old, at different ages, and I don't know when they were born. I know what year. I don't know the birth date, and we don't care because we base it on weight.
Yeah.
So once a month we'll sort through that 1,000 or so head. It comes and goes, but it averages about 1,000. And then we'll sort out the ones that are big enough to slaughter. And then of course, if there's some we like for breeding, we'll cut them out, put a different tag in there.
So that makes me think of two things. So one, with processing, you put yourself at kind of a nice advantage where you don't care the age, and how you were farming before, you had on the calendar this many days old they go, and you get paid by their weight. But now you can say, well, if that one looks finished, I'm going to process that one today. That one looks finished. And having your own processing plant, I know like when we farmed, we got fined or had an extra fee when they were above a certain age. You don't really have to incorporate those fees because you're processing themselves. Is there anything else like that you get the advantage on because you're kind of doing everything on your own and you're not worried about a calendar date necessarily with processing?
Well, I think that there's a lot more profit in this vertical integration. The costs are higher, but I keep 100 cents of the payroll, I keep 100 cents of the dollar I take in. This is kind of interesting, but USDA says that this isn't just about cattle. This in food production, the farmer gets less than 15 cents of every dollar, and we get 100 cents of every dollar. Now, that's not as good as it sounds. It makes it sound like we're making a lot of money.
Yeah.
We're not. But my payroll is $100,000 a week.
Wow.
In Bluffton, Georgia. So we are the largest private employer in the county. So I'm keeping 100 cents of the dollar, but I'm putting it back into this little local economy. If I was loading those calves up on an 18-wheeler and shipping them to Iowa or Nevada, Montana, or wherever we were feeding them, then very little economic impact would happen here.
Yeah.
This looks really bad here. That's where we wintered them before we turned them out. We had them, they fed them a lot of hay. We'll feed.
Do you bale grate or roll out the bales?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
How does that grow up in the spring? I think a lot of people have questions about, oh, well, it's going to suppress growth in the spring. Do you see that?
No, we never winter in the same paddock twice.
Okay.
And they do destroy it, but in April I'll plant a mixture of warm season annuals and perennials, and in 2 years it'll be the best land on the farm. We always select the fields we're going to feed in, what's not growing as well as the others.
Okay.
And that's like we'll feed several thousand rows of hay, and we feed it on the ground. So there's a lot of waste, a lot of manure, a lot of urine, a lot of cloven hooves pushing it into the soil, and it's magic. It works wonders. That's what if I had this land here that's my cousin's degraded farmland, that's what I would do to it. I'd feed cattle on it for a winter.
Yeah.
And bring life back to it. Try to get that 0.5%. That's how you get that 0.5% organic matter up to 5% organic.
Yeah. I love the way that you incorporate technology with animal usage. I think that sometimes, again, kind of back to the extreme thought lines, saying, well, oh, you have to only do it with no machinery and no added extra inputs whatsoever, no seeds, no moving fertilizer, no, adding compost or whatever. But you're able to find the middle in between the two. Is that something that you find difficult to do? Do you still try to be an extreme one way or the other? Do you see anymore?
No, we do. We like to think we do what works. We are certainly reject a lot of the technologies because of the unintended consequences. We talked about chemical fertilizers and pesticides and hormone implants and even wormers and insecticides for cattle. But we don't reject all technology. We try to look at the unintended consequences. I think I'm on my 4th drone, and we just wore them out and crashed them, and that's technology that we embrace. We don't use chemical fertilizer and hormone implants, subtherapeutic antibiotics, and ionophores, and a lot of technologies we reject.
How do you say that you reject them based on unintended consequences? How do you find those unintended consequences, or how do you think about where their unintended consequences might be?
I may be doing something right now that's bad. I just hadn't realized it yet. We try to be thoughted and sensitive to it and think about it and make the right decision. And there are things that I was doing 5 years ago that I've quit.
Like what?
I knew you were going to say that.
Oh, you don't have to answer.
I got to think about it. But there are a lot of things that I thought was fine. Artificial insemination.
Okay.
I used to think that was great.
The bee's knees, right?
Yeah,
I'm right there with you.
And I can do it. I mean, I've been to school. I know how to do it myself. And now I think that's one of the most horrible things, because you literally purchase semen from freaks of nature that may not make it. These bulls are selected because they're freaks of nature. They have 1 or 2 or 3 attributes that are just way more than what the average would be, and those are such sought after attributes that I previously would select them because I want that big ribeye.
Yeah.
And
that is a.
They may not have libido.
Yeah.
They may not be able to walk and move and breathe, and because they collect that semen, they may never have bred a cow, physically
jumped on a cow and bred her. Yeah.
So, and I now think that is so wrong.
How have you acquired the land that you've gotten, with it being basically an entire town?
I inherited 1,000 acres, and I bought 1,000, and I lease a little over 1,000.
Okay.
And I don't have to own it. I mean, I enjoy owning the land, but I'm happy to lease it. Land is very competitive. Whether you're buying it or renting it, it's very competitive. I can effectively use non-irrigated land, and my competition for land is mostly these peanut, cotton, corn farmers. And they have a decided preference for irrigated land. So if a tract of non-irrigated land comes available, I'll probably be able to be competitive. If it's irrigated, I probably won't be competitive.
Really? It's just out of your price range?
Yeah, they can pay more for it than I can.
Wow.
This is our garden. I showed you the greenhouse.
Oh, okay, so this is where you moved it.
We moved the garden, and it's, I don't know much about it. I got a really talented young woman that does a fantastic job, and she manages it very autonomously. And all of our managers, I think, operate quite autonomously. They run their business, and we, there may be something that we can't have or unwilling to do, but for the most part, they kind of do it the way they want to, as long as it fits in with what everybody else does.
You mentioned with that, and then you also mentioned outgrowing a little bit. People will say how you have to kind of buy from other people sometimes just because you're out of land, even though you'd like to acquire more. How do you manage buying from other farmers? And I say that thinking that it's awesome that you have such a market share that you need to buy, and you've maxed out 3,000 acres. It's not like you've maxed out 2 acres. So how do you manage the farms that you buy it from, and do you get any pushback from anyone about buying in?
No pushback that I'm aware of. We've got a guy that manages that, goes out and looks and sees and verifies. So it hadn't been a problem. I don't enjoy it. I'd rather raise them all myself.
Yeah.
But I don't have enough land to do that. This is unusual. This is our orchard, and we buy all kinds of fruit, and small numbers, all kind of fruit and nut trees, even if they are not supposed to grow in this ecosystem.
Okay.
We just try it.
Oh, just like an experiment?
Yeah, you can buy. The trees are $4, $5, $6 a piece.
Right.
So it doesn't cost so much. And we do the work ourselves, and we plant, again, all kind of stuff. And if it dies, it just died.
Right.
We'll try to remember not to do that again. But if it lives, we'll take cuttings off of it and procreate it.
Yeah.
It's not, there's about 20-something acres here that we're doing that on, and I would like for that to grow, starting to bloom a little bit. I hope we can get that. And it's not an economic influencer. What little stuff we make, we'll sell in the store or pickle it or preserve it or whatever is appropriate. But it's not a lot.
You have so much diversity, and with all of your dehydrated products, and I was just in your store before we met this morning and seeing all of the extra things that you have in there and are selling. Do you have that in there just because you know someone will buy it, or is there really like some kind of underlying passion about, is it like adding the ecosystem together and doing it all together because everything is connected, or is there something else that drives you to want to do all of this diversity?
Well, no, I mean, I think that we put what we have in the store for economic benefit. We got to make a living.
Right.
We're blessed to have ownership of this land, but we're not rich people. And so we need to find ways of generating cash so we can come up with $100,000 every Friday to pay 160 employees. So I mean, I guess it's for economic benefit. We love it. We love doing it, but we do it for economic benefit.
Interesting.
If I didn't have to generate a living for, I'd be happy having a hunting property the way not that I'm that focused on hunting, but just to see the land, the cycles of nature operate optimally in that system would suit me fine. So
do you think that there's like a misunderstanding that you're this rich guy and you're just blowing your money for tax benefits? Or
if they think that, it's certainly misguided. I mean, we are probably a little bit unusual economically. We're certainly not rich people. We don't have any money. We never have any cash. We've got a lot of land, and we have some debt on the land, but there's equity in the land. And what we do here, we don't generate a good return on our investment. That quail hunting guy generates no return on his investment. Other people live on the return they make on their investment. You kind of get to choose where you want to be on that spectrum.
Right.
And we are satisfied as a family. We're satisfied with a very low return on our investment. That's what we're getting. But we get to live our life the way we want to. And it's okay. And I don't worry about it much because I think we're building wealth, even though we're not taking in a lot of cash. We own 2,000 acres of land that has gone from a 0.5% organic matter to 5% organic matter. That doesn't show up on the balance sheet, but it is wealth building, and I'm very comfortable with it. I am not a great advocate of cash. I think that I love wealth.
Yeah, so it's like a misappropriation of what wealth is defined as, almost.
I want to leave my family as wealthy as I can.
Right.
I don't care if I leave them no cash. Keeps you from getting out of bed in the morning. It causes you to lie around and think of what you might want to do. And a lack of cash causes you to get up out of bed in the morning and go see about your stuff.
Yeah.
So my goal is to leave my family as wealthy as I can in terms of working assets out here. I love another acre of land, another herd, another flock, another enterprise. But to leave them as much cash as I can not only not the goal, I'm just not, I'm not running the business in that way.
And I would assume so, but for the sake of asking, do they share your ideology of cash and wealth?
They probably like a little more cash, but I think they do. I think they.
I guess they wouldn't be here if they,
yeah,
right?
they could not be here.
Yeah.
I mean, I got a daughter who doesn't work in the business.
Yeah.
She's a school teacher with 2 children and a husband and a job and a career, but she chose not to be here. I will leave this farm to the 2 that are here.
Yeah.
And I say it out loud.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's not who I love the most. If only one of them came back and was focused on running the farm. I don't want to get too far in the weeds on that, but
Yeah.
The old European way of managing an estate was it was left to the eldest son. I think it's kind of brilliant to say we're going to leave this estate intact and not chop it all up and scatter it. Now, to say we're going to leave it to the eldest son, I think was an act of cowardice. I don't want to choose.
Yeah.
So we'll leave it to the eldest son. So
Yeah.
in my case, it's not that I'm choosing these 2, it's that they have chosen
Yeah.
to come here and be part of it. And truly, I got a lot of friends. I'm 69 years old, and most of my peer group, guys my age, are looking for or have found an exit strategy.
Yeah.
They own their own business.
Succession planning is huge in business world.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they're saying, okay. And if you worked for a company and you got a retirement and you just walk out of the office, that's a different deal. If you owned your own business and particularly farm, the exit strategy is very important. And if you've got a child or children that are going to take it over, it allows you to operate until you die.
Yeah.
Building. But if you don't have someone to take it over, at some point you're looking for, what am I going to do with this? Liquidation, or
Yeah.
how's that going to look? So having, in my case, 2 children that wanted to come back and operate it allowed me to continue to keep investing in the business. These fences, most people, so with this farm, this 3,200 acres is chopped up into 150 paddocks. And we move the cattle every day from paddock to paddock. And most people that do that use temporary fencing.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But when my daughters showed interest in coming back and running it, I built permanent fencing. All these fences are permanent. Some of the sheep are not, but all these cattle fences are permanent because they were in it for 30 years. They were 30 years old. They were going to be here for 30 years. And building those permanent fences is very expensive, over $1 million. But if you're going to do it for 5 years, you don't do that.
Yeah.
If you're going to do it for 30 years, it's cost effective. And it's a heck of a lot easier. There's a lot of reasons to make the investment if you've got another generation that's committed to, I'm going to do that. Let's go ahead. So.
Absolutely. I think that conversation and information is really important because
that's the little over 1,000 winter calving cows.
Oh my
They're
gosh.
about through calving, and they hadn't started rotating yet. They're still being fed hay. They'll start this week being rotated.
Is that because you're waiting on them to finish calving?
Because the calves are so stupid. I always look forward to getting started moving them, and I dread it. We will lose a few calves because, as I try as hard as we do, there'll be a few mamas that just go crazy and get that new grass and just doesn't get back to it.
Yeah.
We'll get the calves and take them to them, but I hate that part. A cow that rejects her calf won't get to live here.
So you call those cows. So you're quite selective.
Yeah.
And that brings me back to when we were looking at the bulls earlier, and you talked about doing semen testing, like semen analysis, and checking them out to make sure that they're good, and you have a closed herd. Makes me think of the funny phrase that it's line breeding when it works and it's inbreeding when
That's
it doesn't.
exactly right. I say that.
That's my favorite thing
Yeah.
to say. Anytime somebody says, I'm like, yep.
Yeah, I say that. When it works, that's line breeding.
Yeah. You still use like technology and you make sure that your animals are sound, but how do you manage if you just throw all your bulls out there with your cows? Do you try in any way, shape, or form to manage the lineage that's
No.
there?
No. And I'll let nature take care of that. So if an animal is so inbred that it affects its performance, it'll be taken out to herd.
Yeah. That makes sense. So it kind of selects itself.
I think it's self-ready. My great grandfather and I think my grandfather saved their own bulls and heifers as closed herd. And my granddad or dad started buying purebred bulls to improve the herd. And what we did is mongrelize the herd.
Oh.
These are Iberian pigs. We imported the first ones from Spain.
Ooh, why?
See how different they look?
Yeah, but they look good. Why this breed? What breed is it?
Iberian pigs.
Iberian.
They're a fatty pig, very different from the confinement,
But
concrete floor.
Yeah, but they don't look like the heritage hogs that you see on this homesteading natural farm movement.
It's a different heritage hog.
So where did you find this breed? And
Spain.
Okay.
We had a partner from Spain who wanted to import the hogs, and we did. Ultimately, he became less and less and less involved in it, to becoming uninvolved in it.
And they work out pretty well then. I mean, they look like they probably yield really well.
Yeah, they're a very fatty hog, and there's a lot of demand for that.
Yeah.
We sell lard.
Now, I've seen some of your hogs out on pasture, but these ones are in the woods. And when we were driving earlier, it doesn't look like these, behind us, the pine trees, looks like they're planted. So do you timber as well?
I don't plant, I never plant pine trees like that. I plant a lot of trees, but I plant oak trees and fruit trees, by farms that are in planted pine trees. And I use that very often to feed hogs and those.
Do those come with like any outside contract that you have to adhere to for a certain time period?
No, I don't
Okay.
have. There are those, but another land that I've bought have those contracts, but I'm aware of them.
Yeah, because I've always wondered that.
It would affect how much I would be willing to pay for the land.
Right.
I don't know what I got to do.
Right. And you're telling me that I'm going to try to put animals out here, and then one day a giant old tractor's going to show up and take them all away? Wait a minute.
I'm familiar with those contracts, but I've never had one or bought any farms that had them. I wish there were. These were fields, peanut, cotton, corn fields that I bought, and I wish there was trees out there.
Yeah.
Some.
Yeah. Because we're still in the South. I mean, it gets hot in the summertime.
Oh yeah.
So how do you manage pastures that don't have any trees? Do you just...
There's a few trees in all my pastures. Sometimes it's not as many as I wish there was.
Okay.
But I cut them up.
Gotcha.
So they got some trees. And then when we buy these farms, we get these little houses like that one right there. It's a nice little house. And the employees, all the employees want to live on the farm.
Yeah.
And I don't have enough houses for everybody to live on the farm.
Right.
So we have to try to pick and choose. And if the people that are in the livestock kind of get preferential treatment because they may need to get out at midnight
Right.
to do something.
Yeah.
Not so much.
Yeah.
So that those posts out there, see those posts out there?
Yeah.
That is a transect. So we are a hub for EOV is ecological outcome certification.
Yes.
EOV. And that's where we do it. And we've got about 12 or 15 of those scattered around the farm. And this was, when I bought this farm, they had just cut a 40-year-old stand of beautiful pine trees.
Aww.
They were huge. And I mean, I was okay with it because to me, that's better. I've had this farm for probably 8 or 10 years. I didn't stump it. I just
Okay.
flew grass seed on it and started grazing it. And it's turned out really well. That those piles you see are a non-native invasive called privet hedge.
Oh.
And I had to, I got a loader. I got my guy cleaning that up. But once they get it cleaned up, the cattle will keep it bit off, so it'll be fine.
Okay.
I love, and this, I paid twice as much for this field as I did that field. But really, I think that's going to be better because it's got trees on it.
Yeah.
It's got those stumps rotting in the ground.
Yeah. I was reading The Hidden Life of Trees, I think is what it's called. And the author talks about how the studies that he's done, even when you cut a tree down, the roots are actually still alive, and they will go talk to the trees that are alive. And the trees that are alive are bringing nutrients back and forth through all of those. And so we talked with a farmer who had a little turning point about not pulling his stumps out of his ground, and how much better that made. And it makes me wonder, from a scientist perspective, I also have an animal science degree too, so we have a lot of interesting background similarities, but it makes me wonder that when you leave the stumps in, if that actually will end up making better pasture, because nutrients are moving back and forth so much.
Well, there's no doubt, and there's nothing else. Even if you omit that, what's inarguable is that stump will rot.
Right.
And it will leave that passageway for water and insects, and it just opens that pathway up.
So you've talked a lot about how many people you employ. You have a really large payroll check that you write every week. Do you literally, well, that's not even a question. You basically literally own the entire town of Bluffton.
No, we own more than anybody else. We don't own the entire town.
You don't own the entire town, okay, but you own a lot of it. How, and this is maybe a multi-part question, so I'm just gonna say it and you take it where you want, but from your lineage, your dad built up, the farm that he had from his dad, and then you've done it more. Is there an ending to what you're doing? Are you like at a capsize, not just with land, but as an enterprise, as a business? Are you going to be bigger one day? Are you going to, how would you be bigger? And do you want to be bigger? Did you want to be this big? It seems as though people who get this big end up being money driven. You've said that you're not making as much money as people tend to think that you are. So where's your end goal at? How big are you going to be? How big is White Oak Pastures going to be?
Yeah, there's no. I mean, if it got no bigger, that'd be fine.
Yeah.
If it got bigger, that'd be fine too. And I'm 69. I'm still very actively involved in managing the farm, but everything I do is for the next generation. That's the way it works. The things that I do on the farm, contributions I make today, won't show up until next year or the next decade or the next generation. That's the way that works. And it would be wrong of me to decide how this needs to look in a decade or generation. That's got to be decided by who is in control of it then. And I feel very strongly about that. I'm at the end of the day, from a production perspective, I'm a cow guy.
Yeah.
We got vegetables and we got eggs and we got things, but I love the cattle business. And under my watch, it has become very much a cattle property. We do these other things, but it's first and foremost a cattle property. I try to be, I make sure that my children and in-laws and understand that it hadn't got to always be that way. They may be 20 years from now, there may not be any cattle on this farm.
And you'd be okay with that?
Yeah. I mean, they got to do what works.
You say that a lot. You got to do that. You got to do what works. You say that a lot.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's the way that is. I'm the fourth generation. My children are the fifth. My grandchildren are the sixth. Family businesses don't last forever. So a fourth, fifth, sixth generation is pretty unusual, and we're going to do things to allow future generations to come back if they want to, but at some point they're not going to want to come back anymore, and because that's just the way it works. There may not be another generation, there may not be any more children. The child may not choose to do that, and that's all okay. You can't. The term "manage it from the grave."
Yeah.
I've seen that tried very unsuccessfully a number of times.
Like through someone's will, or
and my dad never borrowed money. My dad was born in 1920 to a fairly prosperous farm family. My granddad, great granddad, and he never borrowed money. He was a child of the Depression. He was born in 1920, so in the Depression he was 10 to 20 years old.
So very pivotal time in a young boy's history.
Yeah. And he was very opposed to borrowing money. He would tell me, don't ever mortgage the farm now. And I agreed to not do it, but I did. And I don't regret that. But I kind of regret we had that conversation. I didn't do what, but the situation was such that it was the right thing to do, and I don't regret doing it.
Was your father still around when you started converting the farm to away from the conventional side?
No, my dad was alive, but he had dementia.
Oh,
and
yes.
By the mid '90s, when I started converting things, he was not out of it.
Yeah. Do you think that had he been in his right mind, that he would have enjoyed what you were doing?
I think he would have not let me do it.
Oh, oh no.
That's what I think.
Really?
Now, I think about that occasionally. What would he think about it now? And I think he would like it now, but he would not like the fact that it involved debt and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I get it.
Yeah.
And he could have been right. It could have gone the other way.
Yeah.
So I'm certainly not gloating that, I made the right choice, did the right thing. It so happened that it worked out. When I was farming industrially, I had a bunch of little herds of cattle. Mm-hmm. I really focused on segregating herds based on their need, with a lot of focus on the animal, not the land. I might have a herd with 100 old cows, and they needed pampering, so they were a herd. They lived together on that paddock, that 100-acre paddock, and pretty much never moved. And then there might have been 200 young heifers I was breeding for replacements, and they need a lot of tender loving care, a lot of nutrition, so they were together in a certain place. And then mix the two because the old cows would compete. And then there was some that had too much Brahman influence, and I was breeding away from that. I may have 10 or 20 herds of cattle.
Okay.
A little bit of herd. The numbers weren't that great.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of little herds. And when I did, I could water them out of a bathtub. A small herd don't take that much water. So now we put them together in these 1,000 cow herds, and water is an issue. And we have gone to buy these big tires from out west.
What do those come off of? Those things are huge. They're what? 12?
Big mining operations.
Oh, okay.
And they're huge. And they come here with the top cut out. They come here to be made into straw. And we put these straws in, and it's you can put 1,000 thirsty cattle in there, and they can all get something to drink.
Mm-hmm. Without fighting with it too much. You said that you think that there are people who lucked into it and people who worked their way up to it, and that they sell to the same people.
There are people who have started with nothing, and through hard work and intellect and focus and determination, work their way up into being real players in whatever industry they're in. And then there are people who are born very privileged with a lot of opportunity that never rise to the occasion. And that's black and white, and they're all different shades of gray in between. And in my case, I was blessed, and I really consider it to be a blessing, to inherit 1,000 acres of paid-for land. I mean, that's not super rich, but it is a great blessing, and I'm very grateful for it. And very quick to acknowledge that I could not have done what I've done had I not had that financial basis to work from.
Right.
I leveraged it. I wasn't supposed to borrow money, but I did. And we were lucky enough to make some good choices, and we were lucky enough that the timing was good, so that we caught traction and were able to increase the net worth of the farm. I mean, we had no debt. There's 100% equity. Now we've got some debt, but we got a little more debt and a lot more equity. And again, we are not financially well-off people. I mean, we have to get together and say, how are we going to pay that, and figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's probably the least enjoyable part of what we do, but I've never not paid anybody.
Right.
We've always figured it out. And, I might have had to sell some calves I didn't want to sell, or I might have had to not do a project that I really wanted to do, or whatever.
Yeah.
But we've always been able to pay our bills. Could have gone the other way. It could have been that it didn't work out. The liquidity was not there to do what we needed to do. But it's always worked out, and I've considered it to be a blessing that it worked out the way it did. It certainly was not brilliant financial planning, because that was not a strength. That was not a skill set I had.
Would you say, though, that there's like some gut check to it? Like you say that do what works and do what feels right. That's a common theme that I've had in your book. You just stopped doing things that you didn't feel good about and kept doing things, or started doing things that you did feel good about. So do you think that not only it's some luck, but maybe some gut work too?
Yeah, I think so. I think that I don't know how all that works. I really, I don't go to church. I've been blessed.
Yeah, I like the way you use that you've been blessed. That's awesome. How do you spend your days? You've talked about how you can just go watch your cows and be at ease, and I think there's a lot of people, myself included, that when we're having a bad day, we just go hang out with our cows and we feel better. Is this just kind of how you spend your day sometimes, is you just hop in your Jeep and go drive the farm?
No, I mean, I do this a lot because I'm thinking about the next thing we're going to do. I mean, I'm talking to you, but I'm also looking at how this is really not doing well. It's really not. It's not growing like the rest of it. And I know why, but I need to know it's not. So I need to go look at it. And in fact, see where it's so good up there? That's where I had a bunch of pigs. That pig manure's left it exponentially richer.
That's something interesting. I'm wondering what your take is on it. We noticed, so we had a very small farm. We had 5 acres, and only 2.5, maybe you could push it to 3, was grazable. And we put pigs on the back lot where it flooded a lot. And that next year, where it typically would have flooded with the first rain, it didn't. Yeah. Have you noticed big changes like that with pigs, and does it surprise you?
I have noticed, and it doesn't surprise me. I mean,
Really?
they're good for the land. They increase the organic matter. They increase probably the root mass of those crops that will come in. So there's more opportunity for percolation and water retention. So I'm not surprised with that.
How did you get?
You can over impact with hogs as well. Because there's a right amount of animal impact. Animal impact is essential. There's a correct amount of it, and it's species specific. I got land that cries out for hogs, or cries out for cows, or cries out for goats.
How does it cry out for those?
What's growing out there needs that impact, that ruminant impact, or that monogastric impact, and of course they all eat different things. Cows, sheep, and goats are all ruminants, but they don't all select the same plants to eat.
Is that, you say their impact, Do you use your science background and knowledge that you used when you were younger to determine those things, or is that just your physical experience being on a farm, on this farm anyway?
I mean, it's based on what I've learned in this 69 years, and I don't know exactly what day I learned it.
Yeah.
I'm sure that some of what I learned in college is probably positively impacting decisions. Some of what I've learned just through observation. And of course, there's a lot of stuff I don't know. There's a lot of things that, see that bone right there?
Oh, yeah.
That's from the compost. I'm gonna take and show you our compost. And I didn't show it, but this one right here, you can see how porous it is. It's very porous.
The bone, yeah.
And it's giving up its calcium and phosphorus and other minerals to the land.
Yeah.
It came from a slaughterhouse. That's
Yeah.
part of that compost.
So that's part of the science knowledge that you got on what?
And we're still thirsty for. I mean, I literally learn stuff every day. One reason I'm out here is to learn, to see, and experience, and I won't ever know it all. But I'll know as much as I can. I think that the fact I did go to college is probably has some benefit, but a lot of the stuff I learned was the wrong stuff. I now disbelieve it. So you just gotta kind of mature your way into who you are.
Yeah.
And
do you regret your time at university or in the? You did sales,
I had
right?
a really good time, so I did not. I do not regret it. I couldn't have had more fun. And I put all three of my daughters through college. They didn't major in agriculture, but I put all three of them through 4 years of whatever they wanted to study.
What did they study?
One became a school teacher like her mama, and she's the one that doesn't work here.
Yeah.
One did marketing, and one did communications. I'm not sure what that was.
Okay. Okay.
But they, I put them through college, and they, like me, they were not stellar students, and it was fine. But I've changed my mind now, and I will not pay for my grandchildren to go to college unless there's a specific career path that requires it.
Why do you say that?
Because I don't think it's highest and best use of that time and money. If I have a grandchild that specifically wants to be a school teacher or doctor or lawyer or something that needs that college education, then if I'm able to, and I probably will be, I'll help them go. But to say I'm going to college to just figure out what I want to do, we're not going to do that.
What would you prefer that they do? If they're like, I don't know what I want to do with my life, what would you say they do?
You can go to work for us if you want to. You don't have to.
Yeah.
You can go to work for somebody else if you want to.
Right.
I don't feel like they got to come back here. In fact, I don't want to make them, and I don't even want to incentivize them to come back here. If they want to come back here, we'll pay them what we pay everybody else for that job. No more, no less.
If there's someone out there that's currently doing conventional and is thinking about going to a regenerative-based model, kind of like what you're doing here, what would you say that their first thing that they should do is?
Well, that is so situational.
Yeah.
I can tell you a mistake I made is, I was farming 1,200 acres of land or something, and I thought I had to move the whole farm from very industrial to very whatever this is.
Yeah.
And I did. And I didn't have to do it that way. That could have been done differently.
How's that?
Either downsize and do it, or just do one part of it, or it's too situational to tell. This is interesting. So that line right there is I learned is fiber optic. Somebody showed me how to recognize those fittings, those little loops there. That's how you
yeah.
tell it's a fiber optic line.
Oh, okay.
So when I realized it was fiber optic, I said, wow. And the CEO of this utility company is a friend of mine. And my age, I've known him for a long time. I called him, and ultimately, 6 weeks later, we had those two buildings now. And the one on this end is mine. I bought it from him. It's a used utility building. The one on that end is his, and his people spliced into that fiber optic line and came into his building, and they did whatever you got to do to put it over into my building. And then I ran it all the way to Bluffton, 4-point-something miles, all the way to Bluffton and all the way to my meat processing plant and my order fulfillment center. So we have in Bluffton, Georgia, in Clay County, poorest county in the United States of America, we've got high-speed fiber optic connectivity.
Wow.
Which allows us to run our online marketing store and all the other things that they do. Not me, they.
What would it have taken to get that in a different situation?
I don't know. Way more money than I got.
Yeah, I've heard almost horror stories of people trying to get stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it'd been a big old 7-8 digit number. I don't really know.
Yeah.
But this, because it so happened that it was here.
Yeah.
They put it here in the normal course of networking.
Yeah.
And then we were able to do this. And let me say this, I didn't pay all that. We split the cost, me and the utility company. And because they wanted to branch off and market that connectivity. This gave them the opportunity to have a big customer who was willing to share some expense to get it. So everybody won.
That's awesome.
Everybody.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. What is the population size of Bluffton? Do you know?
I think it's about 130 people. It got down to about 100. Bluffton peaked in population in 1900 with about 400 people.
Wow.
But really, it would have been a trade center for several thousand people, because that was the era, 1900, we were still in that 40 acres and a mule. Every 40 acres would have had a family with, 6, 8, 10 people extended, grandmama, granddaddy, children. So Bluffton would have been a trade center for several thousand people in 1900, even though it only had 300 or 400 people. And then, of course, the impoverishment of rural America caused it to just decline and decline. And Bluffton had literally become a ghost town. There was nobody in Bluffton except really old people and mostly poor people. Some exceptions, but most. The only business in Bluffton was the post office, and it wasn't open all day. It was just part-time post office. We've been aggressively buying houses and lots and storefronts and stores, and I'm really pleased with what it's done. The three things I enjoy most is animal welfare, regenerative land management, and improving the little town of Bluffton. Those are three things that we talk about. And the first, it was just two for a long time. It was all about the animals in the land. And the town had been in decline since before I was born.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it'd ever be any different. And one day I had somebody here visiting, like you are now, kind of, and we were standing in Bluffton. He said, "It's a nice little town." And I said, I thought he was kidding. I didn't know what he was, where he was coming from with that. Yeah. And I said, yes, it is. And so we started working on it. And now it is a nice little town. It's one of the things I'm most proud of.
Do you see that coming back in the community, like people showing back up? And
I'm pretty sure we can. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen.
Yeah.
It won't ever be a big town, but I think it'll be a nice town.
Probably not going to have a Walmart.
I hope not. That's a bad experiment. See these dead ones?
Yeah.
That's a failed experiment. He's spreading. He's going to spread compost. That's my compost truck, and it's got a 4-foot wide bed chain, so a skull can just blow out the back of it.
Yeah.
And it does.
So you get the unsellables, right, from the animals in the slaughterhouse, and then you bring them over here and you turn it a couple times before you spread it on the ground. Is that how that works?
Yeah, we turn it a lot.
Okay.
So that guy that's doing that is really knowledgeable in terms of making compost. He learned it here, but I didn't teach him. He learned it. He'll bring that dump truck load of guts and bones and feathers and ugly stuff, and he'll prepare. And this is the carbaceous material is peanut shells and pine bark and whatever people give us. Composting is a nitrogenous material and a carbaceous material allowed to chemically and microbially interact to become good organic matter, humus. So that's what he does here. That's all he does. And there's about 6,000 tons of it here.
Wow.
And the reason there's so much, that's what they tell me. I can't, they measured it. I don't know. We used to just have a little bit. I mean, we put that same amount through it, but what was just a few strips. But some expert came here and told us that if we let it sit a year, it would become less bacterial and more fungal. I don't know.
But it's working.
Well, I mean, it just doesn't cost me anything to let it sit a year.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably better. And the bones become more porous. I showed you that. Used to, we spread it out here when it was just 6 or 8 weeks. Those bones would literally flatten tires, run over them and poke a hole in the tire. And now they're porous enough that after a year, they don't do that.
Do they just like crack?
Yeah.
If you run over them?
Mm-hmm. So it's not pretty, but I'm very proud of it.
Yeah.
And it's a really important part of what we do. And it's been a great, I could have gone from 0.5% to 5% organic matter without it, but it makes it a lot quicker, easier.
Are you tracking much of that? You talk about how much organic matter you have. Are you tracking the other minerals and stuff that you have in the soil or doing soil samples?
I'm not. I probably should, but it costs money,
Yeah.
and I just don't have money to spend on that. We did have a big company paid for a study to be done here 4 or 5 years ago. And the study's called an LCA, that's life cycle assessment. And they, a company from Minnesota came, international company, they have all over the world. Well, this looks good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
And it's an $80,000 study that they did, that the company paid for. And it determined that we were sequestering, our cattle operation is sequestering more carbon than it's emitting. You hear cows are destroying the planet and all the stuff, but literally that 5% organic matter, that used to be carbon dioxide. It's carbon, greenhouse gases that these plants breathed in and assimilated into a solid material that went into the ground, cow manure, roots, whatever. So, the whole narrative about cattle destroying the earth is it's not wrong. It is biased.
Yeah.
Because it's on the feedlot model, and that's not what we do.
How do you feel about the big tech companies taking that net carbon term when we were talking about greenwashing earlier? How do you feel about those big companies using those terms for their business?
Well, I think it's terrible that they take the term and don't do it. I mean, if they were doing it, then I think that was fine.
Do you see how, maybe it's too big of a question to ask, but can that be changed somehow?
When I started changing the way I farm, it had nothing to do with global warming. That was not in my equation. I just did what I wanted to do. But all that stuff started happening kind of on my watch as I was doing that. And there was a time that I said, wow, it's not that I intended to be, but it appears I am an early innovator in this change that agriculture is making. That's great. I'm so happy to see that. And then I lived under that impression for a period of time, and then I changed my mind when I saw big companies greenwashing and taking control of that narrative. And so now I think I'm a niche producer, and I liked it better when I thought I was an early innovator in changing the way we farm. But I'm okay being a niche producer. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's not what I want, but it's okay. It's fine. I'm perfectly happy. I couldn't be any happier. I don't know how this is going to work out. I think about it a lot. But I'm convinced that the direction we are going in as a society is super destructive in many different ways. We can list them if you want to, but I don't see how it's going to change. There's so many. Let's just talk about food. And there's so many poor people on this planet that can't afford food raised properly.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry about that. I can't raise it and give it to them, and I can't raise it and sell it to them for commodity price. But I wish I could.
Yeah.
And I have these discussions. People say, "Well, how can you fix that?" I say, "How can I fix it? You fix that. I'll figure out how to do it, and you figure out how to economically get it to the poor people. I want the poor people to have it,
Yeah.
and I want the rich people to have it. I want everybody to have it. I don't want it to be a privilege that only people in the 6-digit annual income can have. But it's kind of the way it is. And it's not that the commodity food is so cheap. It's just that they don't cover their own costs. All of those costs are spun out. I use the example a lot of the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico. We used to, even up here, they brought oysters. The oystermen in the wintertime brought oysters up once a week and sold them in the fish market in Bluffton. Mm-hmm. So I was raised eating Gulf oysters on a regular basis. You can't oyster there anymore. They closed it because all these pesticides and chemical fertilizers and other toxins have washed down these rivers and destroyed the oyster beds. And those of us that sent those toxins down there aren't going to pay for that. We're all going to pay for it. And there are countless other examples of that. And
Do you?
I have no idea how this is going to work out. I don't think it's going to be pretty.
Do you see other farmers coming your way? I mean, the reason why I'm interviewing you today or talking with you today is because I see people trying to farm this way, but at your scale, there seems to be this spectrum of people who can do it for themselves and maybe 10 other families, and then people like you who can do it for so many more people. Do you see farmers your size or people trying to get to your size?
No, because it hadn't worked very well. I think there are less large producers in this movement today than there was 15 years ago.
What happened?
They did something else. I don't know exactly who did what. I used to go to meetings of American Grass-Fed Association or whatever else, and meet people that I thought. I don't know that I kept up with it, but it seemed like they were farming about the same size we were. And we have gotten a little bit bigger. We haven't grown. Well, we have, but we haven't grown a tremendous amount. We've grown a little bit bigger, and those are. Most of them aren't here anymore. There are a few. There's some great ones. We're not. Let's be clear. We're not the only ones doing, but it's just not enough. You take the Alexandrias in Northern California. A guy named Spencer Smith in Nevada. A guy in California, or a young lady in California. I can name you a handful of producers I think are doing the right things really well, and I don't pretend to know everybody. I hadn't made it my business to get out and know who's doing this. These people I crossed paths with. But I do want to be clear that this is not some kind of noble deal and we're the only ones doing it. It's not like that. But there's just not enough of us doing it.
Do you think that maybe their presence isn't known as well? And I say that, I mean, you were on Fox News, and then because of that, you hopped on with Joe Rogan, and you were already on the map, but I feel like that really opened you up to a whole different world of people. Do you think that that's why some of them, why maybe it doesn't feel like there's a lot of you guys or big farmers like you out there because they just aren't getting the press coverage?
Well, I mean, I think the press coverage is very beneficial and helpful.
Yeah.
And I think that we've probably gotten more than most because I'm older and been doing it longer than most. And as a result, partial result of that, doing it on a little larger scale than most. We're not doing it larger than anybody, but we're bigger than the scenario you described, where you're feeding your family and 2 or 3 other families. We're bigger than that. Yeah. And I'm saying that I think that's beautiful. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful way of doing it. It's highly what I do here, and people like me do, is highly scalable, but not highly replicatable. You know, I don't think you'll ever see a big national or international company doing what I do. I think you'll see the way I envision it, the way I think it's probably got to be, is a lot of operations like mine scattered all over the country. And, you know, I'd love to see a White Oak Pastures in every agricultural county in the nation. And that's the direction I thought we were going in at one time, but that has not worked out that way. It's for the reasons we said, economic hardship. It's just hard to do.
Is that where you started turning towards the education and the nonprofit to teach other people how to do it in their county?
Well, when I started working on education with the nonprofit was when I was still in the hope that more and more people were going to go this way, and I wanted to help them do it. And we were doing quite a lot of education without the nonprofit. And I just reached a point I couldn't afford to do it anymore. You know, I couldn't afford to have 20 people come down and stay in my cabins and eat my food and say, y'all come see us. You know, I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And so we formed the nonprofit, and the nonprofit has helped fund it. We still do everything the same way, except the nonprofit takes charitable donations from big companies or high disposable income people or whoever wants to give it. And it's not a big deal. It's not a lot. I'm not on the board. My daughter's on the board. I don't even know what the budget is.
Yeah.
But it's not huge. But we hold. You can look at on the website whiteoakpastures.com and see when we go, how often we have them, and I think they've been really well received. It was the right thing to do, but it hadn't moved the needle on how many people do it. It probably made it a little bit easier for those that had made the decision to farm the way we farm.
Yeah.
So we manage solar arrays by grazing them with sheep under the panels and cattle around the panels. Actually, we hadn't populated this one yet. When we populate this one, it'll be the 4th one, and it'll be a little over 2,000 acres under panels, and then more land than that around it. I'm not sure whether them outside, but it's a really good deal for the solar company and for us.
Yeah.
The solar company we graze on is from Nashville, Tennessee, called Silicon Ranch. A guy named Regan Farr is the CEO. He's really bought into this.
Okay.
And the goal is for us to manage the vegetation under his panels at no additional cost. They still pay us. They pay us as if we were mowing it, but we're using livestock.
Yeah.
Of course, that has more ecological benefit for the land. So if he can get it done for the same amount of money and get more ecological benefit, then it's a win for him. It's a win for me because it's 2,000 acres of land. that I can graze. Now this is a new array. You can see it's not, the
Not
grass
set up
is not
yet.
good yet.
Yeah.
And we have not populated it yet, but we will be populating it this year. Actually, this has got to be approved by the EPD, I guess. The erosion is under control and all that before I can put my animals out there.
I really love that you're doing this and that company CEO is focused on that. I've heard, and that's probably social media, but I've heard horror stories of, and I come from Indiana, where they are taking thousands and thousands and thousands of acres and just throwing it into solar, and it's very divisive. Either farmers are for it or they are against it, and if you don't talk to each other.
Yeah.
The farmers that are for it don't talk to the farmers that are against it, and vice versa.
And I can argue both sides. I think the net effect is more good than bad, but this land used to be farmed by a guy, and it got taken away from him. Well, not taken away from him. Somebody owned the land, and they chose to sell it. They kind of had that right.
Yeah.
And they chose to sell it to this solar company. So from the land's perspective, it went from being cultivated up every year. It was like this road.
Yeah.
Cultivated up every year. A lot of chemical fertilizer, a lot of pesticide, not ecologically pleasing, to this, which we won't use chemical fertilizer, we won't use pesticide, we will be grazing it and they will be building carbon in the soil. We'll be building, it's just, from an ecological perspective, this is better than what was being done. And that's inarguable.
Yeah.
If you want to be reasonable about it.
Right.
Is this as good as my neighbor who's got a recreational property? No, that's better. Compared to the peanut cotton cornfield, this is better. Compared to what I do on my farm, it's a little better than this, but not as good as recreational property.
Right.
You gotta, if people will reasonably be judicious, you can rank who's doing better than who.
So you put your goats and sheep in the middle.
Not goats, sheep.
Oh, just sheep.
The goats would tear them all to pieces.
Okay, that was my question. So they don't tend to
The
tear
only
them up.
species I've got that can graze inside that chain link is sheep. So I can raise cattle out here.
Okay, so the sheep go inside the fence and the cattle are on the outside. Correct. Did you have to trial and error that, or was?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're still trial and error. There hadn't been enough of it done. We've been doing it 4 years. When we started, there wasn't enough of it done. I went to California and looked at where they were doing something out there. I thought it was terrible. They were just loose in a 1,000-acre array.
Oh.
Selectively overgrazing here, not eating. It was not good. We actually put electric polywire.
Okay.
And make them eat down a section every day, high density. We be sure they have plenty to eat. We make them eat what's there. Mm-hmm. And we still mow. We'll still have to mow it once a year, but not 6 times a year.
Yeah.
And I think that as we graze it, we may get where we don't have to mow. I'm not sure of that, but I think we will.
Interesting.
As the species evolve.
So the solar company owns the property.
The Silicon Ranch owns the property.
And then you put the animals out there. What happens if there's damage?
There's a 32-page contract.
Oh my!
If I hit one of their panels with a piece of equipment, I got to pay for it.
Okay.
If one of my sheep tears up a panel, I don't have to pay for it.
That's interesting. So it's more human
cost. And neither one has been an issue.
Okay.
We just haven't had that much damage.
And it's 2,000 acres that you're managing.
When we add this, will be a little over 2,000 acres.
Wow. Do you see that world, that side of it growing at all? Like the solar plus farming?
I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with solar. I mean, most of the people I talk to seems like we'll see more and more and more of it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think that's increasingly the solar will array to power my processing plants. That'll be a cattle tracker. It'll be engineered to use cattle, and I think that would really take off grazing as opposed to spraying and mowing. These panels that they use are just off-the-shelf technology that wasn't manufactured or designed to be grazed.
Yeah.
We figured out sheep could graze under them, so that's good.
Yeah.
But I think that if we design the array so that we can do it with cattle, then it can really take off.
Yeah.
And we won't go back and retrofit these,
Right.
but new ones going in. You know, Americans eat, you can check these numbers, but like nearly 50 pounds of beef per capita per year. American consumption of lamb is like 1 or 2 pounds per person per year.
Yeah.
So if solar is really going to continue to grow, if we're going to handle the vegetation through grazing, and I'm telling you, that's the best way to do it, then we need to get it so that cattle can graze on it.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Will Harris, the person, being so famous?
Well, I really don't think of it as famous. You know, we happen to have been participating in or active in helping develop this kind of farming for longer than most people. And this kind of farming has caught the interest of a certain segment of the population, and I'm perfectly happy to show people what we do. It's not a goal of mine. If I can help benefit the movement and the people participating in the movement, I want to do it. And if I can't, then we can film somebody else, and I'll be fine with that.
Yeah. Do you see your daughters taking a part in any of that?
I like for them to.
Yeah. I
like for them to do more and more of it. I'm aware of the fact that I'm not getting younger, I'm getting older. And I'll tell you something else, I know the history of what we've done better than them, obviously, but I think they have a lot better perspective on what's to come than I do.
Okay. What makes you say that?
Well, they can get excited about what they're going to do next. Those kind of things.
They're ready for the future versus you're kind of maybe pulling back a little bit. You've kind of been there, done that. I'm just doing my thing.
Yeah,
going through.
I don't know that I'm pulling back much, but I'm certainly not. If I appreciate you being here. If I was never on another podcast or interview in my life, it'd be fine. I don't hate it. When I looked at my calendar and saw you were coming, I didn't go, shoot, at all.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But I don't need it, and probably better for the company if they do more and more of it. When I die or become disabled or whatever, however that works out, we still got to go. We still got to raise cows, raise hogs, sell beef, sell pork. This used to be a one-man show. I had employees, but it was a one-man show. And it is now certainly not a one-man show. And I don't want to portray it as being. I don't want to be diminutive of what the other people are doing here, that it's so valuable and essential to hear myself talk. I don't need it.
Yeah. I think that there's something too about maybe just the way society is moving, where being the old cowboy, you are kind of part of the founderhood of the farm, but having two daughters, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as a woman, having two daughters kind of taking into that role kind of moves forward with the progressive part of farming, and that it's not just old cowboys anymore,
Well, and I think that's great. If I'd had a son, he might be here doing the same thing. I had daughters, they're here. Yeah, I don't think it's very gender specific.
Yeah.
You're right. It was a man's world, man's industry for generation, and it's not anymore. But that could be said for many occupations. There used to not be women lawyers or women doctors or women judges, and now you got all the above, and there weren't many women farmers. So it's fine. It's progress. It's what needed to happen, probably belated in happening.
Right.
But this is the soonest you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. You've said before how this isn't easy, and what you do, it's more risky than conventional farming. It's hard, and I probably can easily tell that the reason why you do it is because you just genuinely love it. How do other people find that kind of passion? Do you know?
No, I was born to it. I was not born with it. I was born really passionate. From birth, very early age, I was very passionate about the industrial cattle production model that my dad was part of and very successful in. I loved that so much that I overdid it. I was part of an abuser in terms of
Right.
pesticides and hormone implants and chemical fertilizers and pesticides, all those things. So it caused me to rethink things, and I found a passion for doing it differently. And I had to figure out how I was going to do it differently, and really was not in any way trying to emulate what my grandfather and great-grandfather did. That was never on the table. I was just finding my way. And then I realized this is a way, this is remarkably similar. I still use drones and,
Right.
and Jeeps, but it was remarkably similar to what that model, and I enjoyed it and became passionate about it, and I could afford to do it, and never never thought I'd make a lot of money doing it. I just whether or not I could afford to do it. And as it worked out, the timing was good, and we had some quite profitable years and enjoyed that. Thank goodness when we had those profitable years, I bought land. I didn't take trips and I spent it on a very tangible, non-depreciating asset. And then things tightened up, as we discussed, and we weren't as profitable, but we could afford to keep doing it. So that's what we've done. From a profit perspective, I don't think we're going to bait and switch people up to this. I don't think it's going to happen. I think that for this sort of farming to feed us, it's going to require a lot of people to make the decision, I'm going to eat differently. I'm going to pay a little more for it, and this is what I'm going to eat, and I'm going to feel good about the impact that it has for the land, the animals, the environment, the rural community. But I don't think that this is going to just shift, and we're going to go from the industrial model that's been feeding us for 80 years to this. I think there'll be some gradual movement in this direction. That's what we've seen. I think that often that movement will be detracted from by industrial producers' greenwashing efforts that trick people. And they think they're investing in this. They're really investing in that industrial model. So this is my office. This is the old courthouse, and it's never been a courthouse. Never had court in my lifetime.
Okay.
But it's always been the courthouse, and truly it was a courthouse. We're going to go now and show you. And the old jail is out back. It's a wooden jail, 2-cell jail that's about rotted down. I couldn't save it. By the time I got it, it was too far gone. And I'm told that they hung people in that tree right there.
Oh, wow.
There was a big limb that came out that fell off. Maybe that's a reason.
Wow. What made you want to have this as your office?
I needed an office.
You needed an office and the building was here.
Yeah, I did, but I do enjoy this office. That's the judge's bench.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh, look at this.
There's the bar, plaintiff, defendant. They added the bathroom at some point.
Wow, this is so cool.
And so I told you, so that's my great-grandfather who came here in 1866. His son, my grandfather, his son, my dad, me, and 2 of my daughters that came back here. And since that picture, they've married, so their spouses work here in management, and they've got children now.
And you got the picture waiting for the kids.
This, over here, that shotgun on the left is a muzzle-loading shotgun that belonged to my great-grandfather. Next is a breech-action shotgun that belonged to my grandfather. Next is a Winchester Model 12 pump that belonged to my dad. Next is my Browning A5 semi-automatic shotgun. And then the next 2 are over-under shotguns that belong to my 2 daughters. And it's interesting to me, every one of those shotguns is another level of technology. Until you get to these last 2, it's a step back to what my grandfather had, a breech action.
Huh. It's funny how technology kind of does that sometimes, right?
There's the farm drawn there.
Oh, yeah. Have you ever had somebody stand right here and put a hammer down and say you're fired? Like a worker? I'm being silly. Yeah. I'm being silly because it's a courthouse. You fire somebody if you
I fired a lot of people.
Yeah, you make them stand here,
no,
on the plaintiff's side, and
no, nothing like that. But a lot of people hired here, a lot of people fired here, a lot of people rewarded here, and a lot of people corrected here. That's kind of what my role has become, is to help keep the people, I don't want to say in line. You got the good people that are just doing the right thing, say, well, thank you. And then the ones that not do it say, don't do that. So.
Wow. I'm just taken back by this building. I think it's so cool, and I love that you made it your office. It's awesome. Thank you, Will, deeply for just driving me around your whole farm. And I can't say I've ever driven around 3,000 acres of farm in one day. So thank you very much. Talking with you has been so cool, and to be able to share that with people too just adds to it. But selfishly from me, I've been fangirling the whole time, so I tried to keep a wraps on it. Hopefully you couldn't tell.
You need to raise your standards.
I don't know about that, but thank you.
Thank you deeply. Thank you for your interest. I genuinely appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks.